I will be keeping this very short. I was thinking quite seriously about the question of what is supposed to be almost a final word. And if it is, we've spent a fair bit of time and effort over the last 2 days listening to things, talking to people, meeting with people, doing some networking, listening, absorbing. And I hope this isn't the final word. When I attend meetings of any sort, invariably I reflect. Sometimes when I'm taking a walk, because I walk every day for a few hours and I meditate, and then afterwards things become quite clear. And what I'm just going to do is say to you some things that came to my mind when I was thinking about this. I am not going to be talking at all about the substance. I'm not going to be talking at all about what we're doing in meeting and networking. What I'm going to talk about is the way in which our brains sometimes make use of things that we become exposed to. For instance, the last group that we had, the last session, I'm so glad I stayed here. I'm so glad I was able to be exposed to the things you were mentioning, and I can assure you this was not the last word. I can assure you that I'm going to be doing some thinking about this, and I suspect many of you will as well. And if we didn't, then those who don't think more about it lose, and those who spend some time bringing this to our attention had a partial loss as well. I've been sitting at a table with, generally speaking, 4 other people. One of them works for a remarkable company called Zeiss, which has based itself over the last 150 years or so on something called excellence. When we've been talking about supply chain, I don't think I've heard too many people talk about excellence or how it's achieved, but I won't go down that lane. I wanted to talk about my 3 Brazilian colleagues. And I honestly don't know them. I mean, I've sat with them, and we've chatted briefly, and I had a chance to speak a bit of Portuguese, and I thought that was fun. But when I think of Brazil, I also think of coffee. And when I think of coffee, it reminds me a lot about these kind of meetings. The act of drinking is really quite pleasant. But when you look at the dregs at the bottom of the coffee cup or the coffee pot, they're nowhere near as interesting. But they have more granularity. We were talking before about journeys. My supply chain journey started with a man by the name of Chuck Slater. Chuck Slater was an orphan, grew up on the streets of Chicago, very tall, relatively short legs. At the age of 14, enlisted in the American Army, lied about his age, served in a war zone, received lots of battlefield commendations, and at the age of 17, came back to the United States and on a GI scholarship, entered university, although he hadn't finished 8th grade. And in 2 years, or 2.5 years, he got a bachelor's degree and ultimately ended up doing a doctoral program at Northwestern University, where he was turned on by one person. And I'm mentioning this to you because that one person happened to, a short time afterwards, the man became a full professor at Northwestern University when he was 26 or 27 years old. And when he was in his 30s, he came back to Greece. And Andreas Papandreou became a relatively well-known person in Greece, trying to make whatever contributions he could make. Now, you may wonder what that has to do with coffee. I'll have to think about that more as well. When thinking along, I'm changing, okay, that's one thing back there. Now, another part of my mind had a different screen. And I started thinking a little bit about some of the things that we've talked about during the last 12 sessions and the other discussions. And some of them tickled a personal element, and some of them excited that part of my brain that deals with business issues and trying to encourage excellence. And I'm not exactly sure where this is going to end up as a balance, but I have a suspicion that over time, all of you will also find that the various presentations and discussions and people we met are also going to excite those two aspects of who you are, your brain as well as your personality. I think, though, that what really happens in meetings like this is that we hopefully will have a much longer-term impact. Now, when I talk about longer-term impacts, it's the sort of thing that I remember doing when I first became a university professor. That's a career that didn't last very long for a variety of reasons, but I must say I enjoyed it very much. And I was teaching at Monash University in Australia. I'm a Canadian. I had started my PhD in the United States, and I finished it off in Brazil. And I decided, after having lived in Brazil, going back to Winnipeg, Canada, with the snow and big mosquitoes in the summer, that wasn't the right way to live. So I chose Melbourne because it was, in some sense, beaches, and it had nowhere near as much snow as Winnipeg, Canada. And I didn't want to live in the United States, in part because the Vietnam War was going on, and since I was there as an immigrant, they decided that even though I had been in the Canadian Armed Forces, maybe they wanted my body too. But anyways, I went off to Australia legally, and I taught a number of courses, and I tried in every course to introduce things that I thought were cutting edge. Most of my colleagues were very upset with me because they thought you should be doing what we're doing, which means spending 4 hours or 5 hours a day in the faculty club and doing as little as you can. One of the courses I did was the first person to introduce something called physical distribution management. John has referred to it. He was one of my students. And I only found out 44 years later that at least one of my students really got turned on. And you know something? Not only did I benefit from that, but we all have. And I'd like to give a real for John. Okay, third screen, inflection point. A number of people have talked about this current period, where we are right now, is an inflection point. That point where the asymptote is beginning to move upwards. And it's manifest in many different ways. I'm not going to elaborate them because I'm hungry. But what I do want to say is that hopefully in 2 years from now, when we're having another one of these events in Sydney, we'll be able to be further along the asymptote, and we'll be in a much better position to see the extent to which disruption really is much more severe than what we've seen, and how we really don't have a choice in terms of how to proceed. Because if we don't cope, like companies like Polaroid or Kodak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for those very kind words. Now it's time to invite John Gattorna up to the stage, who wants to thank a number of people that have contributed to the occasion.
Thanks, Ralph. And thank you for the very unconventional summary there, Mark. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and I got what I didn't expect. So, but very insightful, and that's the sort of thinking I like, coming from different directions and converging. But look, we've reached the end of not quite the end. We're going to have a great celebration tonight, but I really wanted to express my appreciation to a number of people. We've had 60-plus panellists here. We've had 3 other speakers, and we have a 4th tonight who I know you're going to enjoy, and I'm not going to say too much about him right now. We've had 13 wonderful sponsors who believed. We had a number of people who I thought we could get here who didn't believe, and as far as I'm concerned, they're off my Christmas card list. We had 13 great partners who, professional partners, university partners, and others who were also believers. And we had 150 delegates, and we had 12 panel topics. Probably we tried to do too much in the time, and it was a tough morning this morning, but look, you've all survived, we're all alive, no one's died, and we're going to have a great time tonight. I was reflecting on the theme, and I think the theme it coped with everything. The idea of building dynamic institutions in the new network world sounds to me like it survived all the discussions, and I'm delighted about that. We had some great knowledge transfer. We had some real thought leadership. We had some great networking, which I'm sure will continue now for years to come. Maybe not 44 years, but certainly for a number of years. And indeed, I think the word that was used by the previous panel, we've been on a great journey, and we've joined a lot of dots. People ask me, as I said last night, what's your contribution to this field? And I'd say I've just joined a lot of dots and helped people understand and integrate the knowledge. So, having said that, I would like to particularly thank the panellists who have really put in the time and thought about the preparation. We really did ask them to meet virtually before they got here, and of course the speakers. And I've got a little present for you, and I think you're going to like this present. I came here in June. I just got out the night before the ATM machine shut down, so I was very pleased about that. And Evangelos and I thought about what we could give that would live in your memory and be a memento for you for a number of years, because lots of these things, I come home from conferences and my wife doesn't want it at home, my secretary doesn't want it at work, my kids don't want, my grandchildren don't want it at school, and it ends up as, I guess, earthfill somewhere. But this is a particularly important, and I'm going to show you what it is, and I'm going to ask you to sit there for a few minutes, and I'm going to show you a short 6-minute video of this particular thing, and it's called the Antikythera mechanism. Now, I don't know, has anyone heard of the Antikythera mechanism? Oh, okay, a few people have. This was the first, effectively it was the first computer. It was a fragment of, piece of something picked up on the ocean floor at a little island, just off a little island called Antikythera, not far from here, over 2,000 years ago. And it was built and designed around the time of Aristotle. But no one quite knows. And what excited me about this is that for over 100 years, people have been trying to sort out what this fragment was, actually what it was. And over 100 years of experimentation and using the latest technology, people have sort of constructed. And if you have the time to go to the Athens Historical Museum, which I went to in June, you will see a number of variations of this. I'm sure that this would interest the Zeiss people, Henrik, because some of your material is probably just as. But this was very advanced. When you think about this and when you're going to see it, and the reason I wanted to present it to you is it is to me, it represents it's the essence of. It's a symbol of innovation and ingenuity. And I wanted you to think of, when you go away, this gathering has been just that. It's been the essence of ingenuity and innovation around the supply chain. And we've come a long way over the last 50 years, considering, it was a very new field. So I'd like you to, and I said there's a little note inside, and there's also a CD, and the CD I think is the long CD, isn't it, Dee? I think the BBC did a presentation on this some time ago, and it's a 60 minutes, so it's a brilliant CV. And I just really wanted to make the comment right at the end of this that it is surely an inspiration to us all as we come together in modern-day Athens to discuss new and creative ways to build contemporary supply chains in the new global independent republic of the supply chain. And we hope that you will treasure this memento of your time here in Athens. So let's roll with the video. After that, what I'm going to ask you to do is just sit in your seats for one last 1 minute video, which is a message from Roy Green, the Dean of the Business School in Sydney. He's just got a brand new $100 million Frank Gehry designed business school. He's jumping out of his skin to have us down there with him, and he's determined to give us the message that he wants to meet in Sydney in a couple of years' time. Once we've done that, I want panellists and the speakers who are here to just come over to there. We've got your name on it, and we want to give you this particular gift. And then I think at that point, Ralph, you'll be dismissing us all to get back to our hotels and get our ties on and change our jackets and get back down to the Dionysus restaurant. So let's roll with the short video.
Would you mind stopping the video? It's no good without the sound. While we're waiting for that, let me just say what I've got to say after this. After the Roy Green video, we'll just part, everybody, and the address of the Dionysus restaurant is on the bottom of your name tag. We're to be there 8 for 8:30, that is drinks at 8 o'clock, sit down around 8:30. I'm told it's an absolutely fabulous place with a stunning view of the Acropolis at night. Still no video, so are we able to do that with sound?
What we'll do, why don't we get out, come over and pick up our gifts while we're waiting.
Okay, all the panellists, come over here. There's a package for you. Thank you very much. As far as possible, try and line up in the order so that it's easiest to sort out who gets which.
More than 21 centuries ago, a mechanism of fabulous ingenuity was created in Greece. A real threat to passing ships, which could be dashed against the unforgiving rocks in a storm. More than 21 centuries ago, a mechanism of fabulous ingenuity was created in Greece, a machine capable of indicating exactly how the sky would look for decades to come, the position of the sun and moon, lunar phases, and even eclipses. But this incredible invention would be drowned in the sea and its secret forgotten for 2,000 years. The Roman ships traveling from Asia Minor to Italy passed between the Peloponnesus and Crete. The small island of Antikythera sits right in the middle of this maritime corridor. Its craggy, rugged coast presented a real threat to passing ships, which could be dashed against the unforgiving rocks in a storm. This is precisely what happened around 70 BCE to the ship filled with treasures we now call the Antikythera wreck. In 1900, fishermen diving for sponges spied a bronze hand on the seafloor. They told the Greek authorities, who, the next winter, searched the Antikythera coast around the shipwreck. Half concealed in the seabed, they found more than 200 amphorae, some of them intact. Nearby were the usual objects of a ship's crew, such as oil lamps. There were also finely worked vases. The more they searched, the more exceptional objects came to light. In fact, this Roman boat, perhaps on its way from Rhodes or the coast of Asia Minor in what is today Turkey, had been carrying some of the most prized works of art of its day. The bronze hand proved to belong to a 5th century BCE Greek sculpture of a philosopher, whose head and some other limbs were later found. Another major discovery was a bronze of Phoebe, a Hellenistic masterpiece sculpted around 340 BCE. Half submerged in the seabed, more statues were preserved from corrosion by the sand and sediment. They lift the veil slightly on the genius which created them from stone. Amongst these sublime objects, the divers found an intriguing bronze item, about 20 centimeters high, which began to disintegrate as soon as it was removed from the water. From the first, scientists realized that this was a mechanism for astronomical data. Scrupulously preserved at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens with the other objects from the wreck, the mechanism aroused the curiosity of many researchers. It was only in the 21st century that modern tools for scanning could penetrate the corrosion to reveal in 3 dimensions the interior of the machine. This showed a set of interlocking gears of astounding ingenuity. High-resolution photographs using different exposures brought to light inscriptions on the sides of the machine which appeared to be part of an instruction manual. Scientists compared the numbers inscribed in the text to the number of teeth in the gears and their arrangement, and applied these to the known astronomical cycles of antiquity. Thus, a reliable reconstitution has been made.
All the clues point to the same date, including the metallurgical analysis and especially the text analysis. The form of the letters is typical of the period, and the vocabulary used is found on all the other texts of the same period. Given the extensive information we have, a reliable reconstitution can be made.
Housed in a rectangular frame, the machine shows data on both sides. In front is the larger dial, showing the 365 days of the year according to the Egyptian solar calendar. Inside, a second circle shows the 12 signs of the zodiac. By turning a handle, one could position the 2 hands to indicate, for each day of the year, the exact position of the sun and moon, and a small sphere indicating the phase of the moon. In order to guarantee its exactitude, whatever the day or year chosen, a dial on the back of the mechanism shows the metonic cycle, which reflects lunar and solar cycles over a period of 19 years, corresponding to 235 lunar months. Above this, another spiral dial indicates eclipses of the sun and moon. The handle was used to advance the pointer to determine when the next eclipse would occur in the Saros cycle. As these operations were connected by the interlocking gears, the actual date of the eclipse showed on the other dial. How did the Greeks manage to devise a mechanism to reflect such complex and irregular data as the lunar cycles? The question also intrigues today's specialists in fine watchmaking. Matthias Butte, Director of Research and Development at Hublot, decided to reproduce these ancient forgotten calculations and integrate them into a modern watch.
Je voulais pas être comme un pilleur de tombes qui vient voler une idée.
I didn't want to be like a tomb robber who comes to steal an idea which has existed for a long time, but rather like someone who approaches our forefathers with deep respect, whose goal is to recreate the antique object in a contemporary form. The original is about 20 centimeters high, and we have been able to create a 30mm movement which can easily be worn on a wrist. This anti-cathera mechanism includes ingenious features which are not found in modern watchmaking.
Several writers in antiquity, including Cicero, mention the existence of similar machines, but the antikythera mechanism is the only one which has been recovered. It was recently discovered that it also indicates which cities would host future Olympic Games held every 4 years. It is also believed to trace the path of certain planets, including Venus. Who invented this machine? For whom and for what purpose? We still have no answers to these questions, but research continues, constantly uncovering further mechanical and mathematical subtleties, adjusting our perception of the ancient world and its technology.
Hello, my name is Roy Green. I'm the Dean of the UTS Business School at the University of Technology, Sydney. I would like to welcome you as a university partner to this very important thought leadership conference with John Gattorna. I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you personally, but I am, however, delighted to welcome you in 2 years' time to the conference when it is held here in Sydney at our Frank Gehry designed UTS Business School building, just opened earlier this year. It is a building that exemplifies the themes of this conference around technology, creativity and innovation, themes that are critical to an understanding and implementation of supply chain management. So I greatly look forward to meeting you and welcoming you here in Sydney in 2 years' time, and I wish you well with the conference today in Athens.
All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We are finished tonight, 8 o'clock, collar and tie for the men and equivalent for the ladies. We'll have a wonderful dinner and relax and just enjoy each other's company. Thank you, everybody.